Hi, thank you for joining me today. I'm glad that you joined us because we're going to have a lot of fun doing our second live video. So we're going to do a fun little scene with some rocks and some wildflowers. Let's get started. I've already laid out my palette just a few minutes ago, and I've coated our canvas with a thin coat of white medium. So I'm going to take my 2-inch brush right through, a little bit of Prussian blue and black, mix those together on the brush. And we'll start right up here at the top like we usually do and paint in a beautiful deep sky. I'm going to allow this paint to work all the way across, and you'll see that it's pretty easy because I've already coated the canvas and it's wet, and we can blend color pretty easily. Now, the bottom is dry. That's important because if you put too much wet paint down at the bottom, then it becomes very difficult to put those beautiful details on. So while I'm just doing this part, why don't you go ahead and use that chat window and maybe tell me what country you come from. And I have my family here helping me, so they're going to be watching the computer because obviously I can't while I paint. Also, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. I've changed to a clean brush. I'm just going to blend all of this together. There. Now we'll probably try to keep this to about an hour, although we don't really care if we go over. I think we're going to have a really nice time. All right. I'm just blending all these colors together until it's pretty much smooth. I think something like that looks pretty nice. Now I'm going to change to a filbert brush. Pick up a little bit of titanium white. And I'm going to tint it maybe just with a little bit of red. I think today we're going to go ahead and paint something with a lot of beautiful purple colors, not something we normally do. I'm going to scrub these right in, make it very, very soft. See that? And maybe one right here. All right. I'll set that brush down and pick up a 2-inch again, and let's blend this just a bit, enough to make it soft. There. What's that?
An error occurred. Please try again later. Learn more.
Uh-oh. I'm guessing that we had a little bit of a problem in the feed. It should come back on in just a second. So let's see, we were just blending in some beautiful colors here, and we might lower the sky just the tiniest little bit here because I know I want some beautiful, beautiful rolling mountains. There. All right, let's put these mountains in. So I'm just going to continue using this 2-inch brush. A little bit of green, brown, blue, black, mix them all together here. And then add some white to it to lighten it, because you don't want it so dark. Almost the same color as the sky. And let's start right here. Put in a little bit of color. That's enough. Change to a clean brush, and I'm gonna blend this. In fact, this brush has a little bit of blue in it. That makes it even better. Because blue, as you know, adds a lot of distance to colors. It makes things look like they're very, very far away. You can add a little white to the bottom. There. Change to a darker color here. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint in another mountain. These are pretty fun, and they're so quick and simple to do. You don't have to spend all day on something like this. It's fun, it's easy, and it's really, really enjoyable. All right, I think that's probably about far enough. If you're having trouble with your video or audio, let us know and we'll try to help you. But like I said, refreshing the internet browser seemed to work. We had a frozen screen for a second because we're also watching it in real time. And that seemed to fix the problem. There. Now, I'm oftentimes wiping my brush to really remove some of the paint. That just makes it easier. Now let's change to a filbert brush. And I just want to sketch some of this in. I'm going to pick up just a nice, dark color here. It doesn't matter. And today I think we're going to do a little road. So there's the background. Here's maybe right up here is a big old rock. Maybe, oh no, we got to go taller. I think we should go way taller than that. Now, I have painted this painting one time a couple days ago, just in preparation for this. There. So I really kind of have a better idea of what I'm doing than I normally would if I hadn't painted it before. So I've already made a few mistakes on it, which I'm not going to make again. One of them was, I like that nice and high up there. So let's go ahead and do a tree right here. One right here. I'm just swirling them in so that I know the general location. Same over here. Okay. And then let me just block in this road. And I think my road's going to be right about, a very small road. Right about here. I don't want it too large or it won't look right. It'll look like a huge road. I guess this is not a road. This is more like a little tiny, tiny path. Something like that. Yeah, I like that. And it's, it's going to sneak right behind the rocks here. So I want to bring that rock out. This is a time where you get to play with your painting and make all sorts of adjustments to it. There. If this is your first time watching us paint live, I hope you're really enjoying it. It's a little more interactive than some of the other videos. It's a lot of fun. I'm just kind of blocking in the shape of the land here. And I'm going to step back and see if I like this. Get a really good look for just a second or two. All right, this looks pretty good. You see, I just can't see it that close when I'm standing right next to it, so I want to step back and get a view that looks more like your view. Because then I can see what's going on. All right. And again, as we progress through this painting, if you have any kind of questions at all, just let me know. We'll have a lot of fun and try to answer some of your questions as we go. So maybe over here, I'll just continue with this brush. I'm going to go ahead and paint in a little bit of blue, a little bit of green, some white. Let's just see what we get here. I'm going to throw some of this right here. Oh, that doesn't show up too well, does it? All right, so if it doesn't show up, just adjust the color slightly until you're happy with it. Okay, now that shows up a little bit. I'll change the color as I go. There's a little brown. And here's a little green, brown, black. What if we took this one all the way off the top there? I think that would be kind of nice. There. So I'm just spending a few minutes blocking these trees in. That's all it is. Set this brush down, pick up a 2-inch, kind of wipe it out. And I'm going to tap over these to blend them and make them blurry because they're way in the distance there. And then to finish off those background trees, underpainting them at least, I'll throw a little black under here and blend it up. And that's it. Now, while we're in the tree blocking in mood, let's go ahead and paint in these guys over here. And I go up, maybe make this a bit taller. You can do that. You can change the size and the shape of your trees as you go. You don't have to stick to the sketch. Now, I've had a lot of questions many, many times on the same problem, is people sometimes have trouble getting their paint to, when they're underpainting, getting it to come off their brush and cover the canvas well, like I'm doing here. There's a couple problems. One, maybe you don't have a canvas that's been primed with acrylic gesso. You want that, because that really helps. Or a panel. You can use a birch panel to, as long as it's primed with gesso, it works just as well to try to cover. It covers very well. But usually the real problem is that your paints are not the correct pigment or consistency. As you know, a while ago, we started offering a paint set, my colors that I use. In fact, I have a set here I can show you, in case you haven't seen it. See that? It's made by Gamblin. It's got my colors, so that way you know exactly that you're using the right thing. You're using what I use. We're all on the same page. It makes life so easy. We don't have to worry about the paint. And then we've also started selling individual tubes. So you buy the set, then you need replacement tubes. Well, we have those too. So usually purchasing the correct paint really helps. Really makes life so much easier and makes it more fun because you have a little bit better success that way. You don't have to worry so much about the canvas not being covered properly or having too much paint. That's even worse. You want to get a very thin coat. Not thin like runny, but thin as in there's not much there. Very slight dusting of paint on the canvas. All right, here we go. A little darker at the bottom. And you could spend all day sitting here painting in these trees, but we don't want to do that. So yeah, use this brush. And I'm going to tap to blend some of this together. I don't want a perfectly hard top. I want a bit of a fuzzy edge to the top of the trees. Let's work on this side. Maybe over here, just continue with this big brush. You could use the filbert brush or this big one, depending on what you want. All right, I'm going to come all the way up here. The reason I'm going to use the big brush on this one is because I'm not as concerned in this corner about the tree being detailed. It's kind of like a filler tree right here. Don't get the branches too big. When you use the 2-inch, sometimes the branches get too big. So keep them nice and tight. Something like that. That looks pretty good to me. We're going to have a nice tree right over that. So maybe.
Kevin, we have a question.
Okay, we have a question. What is it?
Do you wipe the brush on a paper towel every time before loading with more paint?
Ah, okay, so this is a great question. The question is, do I wipe my brush every time before reloading with more paint? Well, no, I don't do it every time, but I do it a lot. I would say far more than 50% of the time. I'm going to throw a little dark under here because I feel like I need a little extra dark. There. Now I actually can't see that side at all because of the lights. So I'll adjust this when I stand back later if I feel like I need to. For now I'm going to leave it because I think it looks okay. Well, the answer to the question is I do wipe it most of the time because that ensures that I have just a little bit of paint in the brush. Also, if you have a dark color and you want to lighten the color, just wipe it on the paper towel and you'll just put less on the canvas and it'll appear lighter. So that's a kind of an easy tip there. It really makes painting easier if you just wipe the brush. You can always add more, but it's trickier to take it off. Throw a little color back here. There we go. I'm scrubbing it in really well, grinding that brush in. If you have multiples of each brush, your brushes will last a lot longer. This is my smaller filbert because I've been grinding with it. I've got a couple new ones down there I would only use for highlighting. They're a little softer. All right, so let's go ahead and paint in this area. Well, let's use the 1-inch. Well, let's use the 2-inch, it's dirty. Okay, black, brown, mix those together. I'm going to add just a little bit of blue and red. The reason is because blue and red will make a purple color. Then I'll add some white. Oh, that's pretty. So it's like a purple gray. And like I said, this is going to be kind of a bit more purple in this painting than normal. The wildflowers, which are going to be covering this area, will be purple. And so I want the rocks to tie in. When you're painting and you're deciding about colors, be very careful not to just, paint the water blue, the grass green, the trees green. if you have beautiful soft yellow or orange colors, then maybe you want those in the grass as well. If you have purples in the meadow here, maybe you want it in the rock. Not because there's purple rocks, but because it ties the painting together, makes it look a lot better as art. All right, we got another question.
Do you practice a piece before painting the ones you see on the video?
Oh,
Do you make up the picture as you go?
that's a good question. Okay, the question is, do I make up the paintings? Do I actually practice them before I paint them on the videos? Or do I just make them up as we go along? Well, no, I don't practice them. This is the rare opportunity. I did practice this one because I'm doing it live. Normally I don't, because I just don't need to. I can work out any issues that I have, and the only reason you would want to paint them first would be to paint them more quickly. Now I don't, however, just make it up as I go along. What I've done is I'll take several photographs and I will put them into a photo editor software on the computer, and I will put them together. I'll combine them and so I'll take a tree out of one and a mountain out of another, a lake out of another, and then I'll actually get the little brush tool out and I'll scribble some lines where I want trees that didn't exist and things like that. And that makes a new painting. So I could take 4 paintings and four photographs, and I could make, 10, 20 different paintings that were all nice and different. Okay, so I'm just sketching this in. I really find sketching helps. And you can do little smudges of color and makes it nice. We're going to put some beautiful highlights out here. In fact, here's something I want to show you. Let's go ahead and take a paper towel, which I have right over here on my easel, and let's wipe down this area. You'll notice that the paint doesn't come off because there's only a stain on the canvas, but I'm going to show you the paper towel. See that? Look at all that paint I took off. That's just that much less paint we have to deal with later. Makes highlighting easier. All right, we're about to finish up here covering our canvas, and we're just going to go right on to some beautiful highlights. So I've got my big brush. I threw a little green, black into it. I don't want it pure dark though, so I'm going to add a little yellow. Sometimes you don't want it pure dark when you paint grass, when you paint the shadows in the grass. Because sometimes if you get black in the middle ground or the background, it tends to look like a black hole. It's okay to have pure black in the foreground. That's fine, because that creates depth. So keep that in mind as you're doing this. All right. That looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit of color right here. And of course that path is going to need to grow, because you don't want it the same width all the way down. Let me throw a little black, blue on the brush here, and put that right in the corner. There we go. Looks like it had a little purple left over from our red and blue that we added together. All right, 1-inch brush, a little bit of our brown, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red.
Here's a question.
All right, go ahead.
How often do you replace your brushes?
Oh, okay. So we got another question here. And the question was, how often do I replace my brushes? Well, I couldn't give you an exact time frame, but, well, you get a lot of paintings out of one brush. They just don't all stay in they don't all do the same thing their entire life. So I've got this very old one, which used to be my highlighting brush, and now it's my scrubbing brush. This one looks like it's brand new. I don't think I've even used this one yet. And I would definitely highlight with that one today. And then you got to the brushes in between. So it just depends. If you have 2 to 3 brushes, then they certainly last a lot longer because you scrub with only one of them, and then you highlight with only one of them. All right, maybe let's work on some background trees. Ready for this? I'm going to take some yellow. Now, because this is in the distance, I'm going to throw a little blue into this color and throw a little white into it. Let's see what we get. A little yellow ochre, but not too much. A lot of this painting is just trees. There. So I'm going to tap and smudge. I'm not just tapping like this because that would give me a very harsh texture, which is okay in the foreground, but in the background, no, I want it smooth. I want it soft, beautiful. There we go.
Here's a question.
All right, go ahead.
Is it better to paint detailed items like people or cars when the canvas is dry, or can you do it with it wet?
Ooh, I like that question. Okay, so the question was, is it better to paint detailed items, such as people, cars, buildings, stuff like that? Is it better to do that while the painting's dry or wet? Well, I haven't done it much, but I have done a couple of boats, like little canoe things, and I've done some buildings, and you've seen me do some buildings. I recall I was doing the boats, I did those over a dry canvas. And that's great because you can wipe them off if you don't like them. So I would say yes. Go ahead and work on a dry canvas when you're doing detailed items, especially people. I can't imagine trying to paint people over a wet surface. So I would recommend doing that on a dry canvas. Now, the buildings, however, are okay to do on a wet canvas because it's okay for the background colors to mix a little. It kind of harmonizes the painting. Okay. There we go. I'm just building this highlight up. You can go even brighter. So I've got 2 highlights on that one on that one. Watch this. Take some white and some yellow and some blue. Mix them all together. A little more yellow. And just barely hit the edge of that tree and make it sparkle. It's soft, but it's just adding a little bit of light out there. You see that? A little bit of light here. There. And we'll add tree trunks in here. I don't want to leave this just like big bushes. We need tree trunks, so we'll do that later. I'm not concerned with that now. A little more white. There we go. I like this. Okay, so now what we're going to go ahead and do is work on, well, let's quickly work on this tree. I just took this color right through some green, yellow, brown, but it's basically just that same background, or the background highlight color we were using. Over here, I'm just going to be very, very loose. You'll notice sometimes I'm loose and sometimes I'm not. It just depends on what area of the painting you're doing. Doing a background tree like this, be as loose as you want to because it's going to be mostly covered, and what part's not covered is not really going to be noticeable. So it's not going to be something we want to spend much time on. All right, wipe out that brush. Let's go ahead. I just see I want a little more highlight right there of sparkly white. We can do that. We can put just a tiniest bit, smooth it in, just to show a little extra light.
Here's a question.
All right, go ahead.
How do you make light effects for different times of day?
Ooh, okay. Question is, how do we make different light effects for different times of day? Well, sunset's pretty simple. You just turn all of your colors into soft yellow oranges, and then you want to have a beautiful bright spot in the sky. That works out pretty well. And then it's very important, that color's not quite right, add a little yellow to it. It's very, very important when you paint sunsets to make the colors consistent. Now, this is not something I've always done, and I've struggled with this. I guess it's just like a thing you have to work around in your mind. You have to make sure with a sunset that your colors are matching. So if you have yellow sky, you need yellow water, you need yellow in your evergreen trees, you need yellow in your grass, you need yellow in your rocks. It's just the way it works. And that's the way it is in nature too. Go out and look at a sunset, everywhere else is reflecting the colors in the sky. It's beautiful. Now in the daytime, it's pretty simple. You can just go with a very natural, vibrant greens, deep blue sky, deep blue water, rocks with a very, very dark highlight. And it just works out pretty well. I'm trying to think, oh well, a moon. You could do a nighttime scene where you want to use some purples in that maybe. There's not a lot of color at night, but you could put a little extra color in. So a night scene, you probably want to put some blues or purples in there. All right, so I think I basically have these trees underpainted where I'm happy with them. I'm gonna go ahead and tap some highlight on these trees. Let's go ahead and take some yellow, white, yellow ochre, touch of red, but not much. Tap these on the brush, and here we go. We're gonna do a little tapping.
There's a question.
All right, go ahead.
When do you decide that a painting is finished?
Oh, okay, we have a good question. I like this one a lot. When do we decide when a painting's done? Well, it kind of depends on what you're using as a reference. If you're painting from a photo or a combination of many photos, then it's a little bit easier because, you put in everything that's in the photo, you're done. But as far as detail, it's very difficult to over-detail the foreground. Where you get in trouble is painting, okay, the painting looks good and finished, and then you try to put more detail in, which is fine. Then you go to the background and you start adding detail in the background. And that's where it gets bad. It gets not so productive back there because you're actually bringing the foreground close, or the background close to the foreground, and that doesn't work. And another thing that can happen, especially when you're painting with wet oils, is you will run into a place where you can't put any more detail because you're simply maxed out. You can't go over it again or it'll just become mud. That's when you stop. And that's okay. Because you could wipe it off if you need to, scrape it off, wipe it with a paper towel, and you'd go back to a drier canvas and you could put your detail in, but you'll lose whatever's underneath. So that kind of is a good indicator it's time to stop. All right, so we're just continuing tapping these little trees. How are we looking? I'm gonna step back as soon as I'm done with these trees to see what you're seeing. Because like I said, all I can see is a bunch of brush strokes. There. And I hope at home when you paint, you step back from your really take a good look because there's no better way to see how it's coming along. Don't paint the entire thing and then back up and say, oh boy. Back up several times throughout the painting. And when you're confused, stop, back up, look. There.
Here's a question.
All right, go ahead.
I just loved your cityscape painting a couple months ago. Will you ever do those again?
All right, I got a question that said, well, thank you, first of all. I'm glad you liked it. They enjoyed my cityscape painting. I did that a little while ago. And they're asking if I want to do it again. I probably will. I had a good time. It was a lot of fun. It was really interesting for me because I don't do that at all. I don't do cityscapes. So I was kind of like learning to paint a different way. It was very interesting. I did have my normal reference photo with a combination of several photos. So I had some ideas for those buildings, but then they didn't come out at all, like the photo, some of them. So it was just kind of interesting, but I just worked with what was on the canvas. It was a lot of fun. It was a different experience. So yes, I enjoyed it. I think I probably will do it again sometime. It's actually a lot like the flowers. Those flowers are the same way. I don't really paint a lot of flowers, so when I do, it's very exciting, different. All right, watch this. Oops, I don't quite like that color. I'm going to change it. Okay. I'm putting a little bit of a crisp edge on this side because these are closer and I want them to appear like they're nice and detailed here. That pushes that other one back into the distance. See that? So work these colors right in. Don't want to spend forever on this, but it just kind of gives you a nice idea of how to make these beautiful trees. It doesn't take a lot of time to get a pretty good effect here. Work some of this darks in like this, maybe a little bit more dark. I really do feel like we need some more dark right here. Work these up, kind of feather out. Maybe I got a little carried away there. What do you think? Does that look good? Do we have enough? All right. I'm going to stand back and see what you guys are seeing. All right. So I noticed from back there, see up here, I think it looks fine. From back there, I want to put a little more highlight out here. Just see, do you notice how they're a little bit undefined? Watch this. So I got my beautiful bright color in the filbert brush. Now I've got enough paint on there that I'm not going to be going over this again. This is it. Our last highlight on these trees. Can't go over this. Again, it won't work. It'll become muddy. A little more green. And I'm really going to just spice these trees up a little bit, make them sparkle out a little bit more. There. I'm totally okay with getting some texture here. I don't care, because I'm not painting this over. This is it. Now look at that. You see how that pops that out a little bit better? The trees are kind of standing out. There's one. There's one. You kind of just do it right on the outside edge. This one needs a little brighter. And when you're home, see these handles have a long brush. These brushes have a long handle. Said that one backwards. So you want to scoot way back on the handle and use it this way, because you actually can see the painting better if you stand far away and use the brush like this. Nice. All right. And I want to put just a little touch of this yellow ochre up here just to change it. So those trees are very bright now, and they're kind of coming to life. I'm going to stand back again because I don't want to finish the trees and then decide they need more help later. All right, I think we're finished. I like it. I'm going to pop a little dark in here just because I oftentimes do that when I'm painting trees. This is not something that's new. I want to pop in a little dark here and there to break it up so it looks like more individual clumps. You can do that. Always feel free to block in darks again. Your darks are the most valuable part of the painting because it's the only reason you can see the highlight. You can have the brightest highlight you want out there, no darks, and it's not going to be good. So feel free to block those darks right back in. You see that? Just create a better overall tree shape. I think that's nice. A little dark up here. I think I lost some of the dark on this side of the tree. There. Good. And you notice because we don't have a lot of paint on here, for the most part, except for the highlight, I can do this. I can work dark over and it won't become muddy. All right, let's go ahead and work on something else. We've painted enough trees. Let's work on, well, I say we painted enough trees. Let's work on another tree. Let's work on a big tree, something different. Brown, black, touch of blue. And what do you think? Maybe right here. And it's going to swing way over like this. Way over. See that? It's going to bend. So it's one of those trees that's growing out from the rocks. You know, those ones you've seen them. You sit there and you wonder why in the world they can even exist, but they do. They grow right out of the rocks. You wouldn't think there's any soil in there for them to grab onto. Okay. And just for fun, why not throw a little guy right there? I did that in the original, and even in the original, I put a little stump. That's kind of nice. Okay, now let's go ahead and make him a little taller. Okay, let's go ahead and let's block in some shadow kind of midtones over here. So I've got, let me clean off my palette. I'm just gonna, see I have a lot of this, I don't even know what I'm grabbing anymore, and I'd like to be more specific, so I'm just gonna take my palette knife and lift that off. Here's a little black, a little brown, mix those together. What do we have? Maybe a little bit of, let's make a purple. Red, blue, there. Take some white. Ooh, purple gray, I like that, a little more red. Okay, that's pretty. Watch this. Is that showing up? Not too much, so that means we need to lighten it. There. Let's see if this works. Okay, good. So let's just put a little bit of this in here. A little more blue if you want to. I think it needs a little more blue. Wipe, that's way too much paint in the brush, so I'm gonna wipe some of it out. There, see, I didn't need all that paint in the brush. It just wasn't necessary. I'm gonna have this come up here. There, I'm gonna make that a little different. I can do that, that's not a big deal. I'm noticing a little tree right there. There we go. A little bit of swirling color, and we have an instant tree. All right, a little bit over here. Maybe this rock projection goes up like that, and this is kind of growing from in between. Like I said, I basically can't see this at all over here because of the reflection of the lights. Just something we have to work with here. It's not a big deal. There. And I'm using these big, broad brush strokes because that's what looks like loose rock textures without me painting anything at all. Just big and bold brush strokes. Okay. Oop, look at that. A little dark. And I think we need some beautiful darks right out here over the highlight areas. See that? It cuts those highlights right off, and we can see where the rock is now. Okay, I'm pretty much getting to where I think that's done. We're close to it. Maybe we want to just do a little adjustment here. Maybe we want to bring that rock so we have a little bit more land, and I just think that looks better. I don't know. You can do it either way. Let me put a little bit of our light right out over here. I know this is going to be even lighter, then we'll get better contrast. And let's go ahead and paint probably the final light highlight up here. That's about all we want, is just a tiniest little hint in between the trees like that. Okay. Let's go ahead and paint the background. So for that, I'm just using the same old filbert brush. I haven't even changed brushes. Looks like I've only been using 2. All right. Gonna just use all these light colors we have laying around. Maybe I just want to change the color slightly and add some white. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's see what it looks like. Not bad. Now I think I'm pretty much sure. I'm going to show you how to do some beautiful, beautiful areas with the fan brush. We don't do that a lot, so I thought it'd be fun to do. Beautiful grassy areas with the fan brush. I think we need to blend this. The clean 1-inch. Lightly touch over this. See how that sets that back just the tiniest bit? Just a personal choice.
Here's a question.
All right, we got another question.
I have trouble getting dimensions in my rocks. They go flat. Any suggestions?
Okay. We have a question about rocks. The question is, you have trouble getting dimension in the rocks, and can I offer any suggestions? Well, yes, I can, and I will in just a second when we go to do some wonderful highlights. You'll get to really see it. For now, the best advice I have is to look at real rocks, photos, or nature outside, and just get an idea of how they're shaped. And then the real thing that you can do with rocks to make them amazing is use big, bold brush strokes and leave the sharp edges. I know sometimes it's easy to overwork the rocks, and then you lose the sharp edges, and then they don't look as real. I mean, obviously there's some very smooth rocks, but not usually out in like the jagged cliff areas. So if you want to paint them a little bit more jagged than even your reference photo or whatever, that would be great. It might just make things a little better. All right, and another thing you want to do for rocks is just really pay attention to the shadow areas, because the shadows shape everything. Now, that's enough of the filbert brush. Let's grab a fan brush. Now, I have 2 fan brushes, a new one and an old one. I'm going to grab the old one first. Go right through some green, brown, black, blue. Let's tap right here. Wow, that just barely shows up, doesn't it? I'm going to take this dark, a little bit of black and green, and I'm going to just scrub right here because I want to lower these trees so that we create another section of the painting, another layer. So you have layers going back. Okay. Oh, there we go. Now we can see that. And I'm going to kind of brush and smudge and brush and move it around. And see, I don't want too much texture. Okay. Now, I don't want to get too much paint out here because what's going to happen is I want to put flowers on here, and it's going to be literally impossible if I have a lot of paint. So just a bit, just a tiniest little bit. Some out here, that's okay. All right, maybe a little bit over here. You can kind of do that pretty easily. See that? A little dark. And I'm so quick and loose and free. I know it just looks crazy, but I don't care at all if that's detailed. I want it to be rough for now. We can straighten it all out later. Okay, here we go. Let's paint in our path. I'm gonna grab a clean filbert brush just because I can, it's available. Let's use this one right here. This one looks a little cleaner. Clean filbert brush. And I'm gonna grab a little bit of our brown and some yellow ochre and some white and touch of purple just to sort of dull the color a little bit. Okay, let's see what this looks like, see if we like it. Do this really quick. Now the light is coming like this, so the grass is shading the path here. On the left-hand side, and the right-hand side would be picking up the highlight. That's how you determine what's bright and what's not on your paths. That's actually, you would think maybe, well, the light's coming from the left, you would be hitting the left side. No, it's actually opposite. Totally opposite, because that grass is blocking the light. Don't want the path too big. A little red, I think a little red might, just a touch in there. And I'm being a little bit loose with this path, a little bit more loose than sometimes. Because it's not about the path here. This painting is about the rocks, trees, and flowers. The path is just sort of there. It's not the main focus, and if it's not the main focus, why put a lot of time and effort into it? Because it would only distract from the subject. It just sort of gets you back into that painting. In fact, I might darken it up a little. So you see this, I hope you're noticing that I'm going into a lot of dark and light. So I'll put in a little light, put in a little dark, and just change it up as we go along to adjust it and make it the way I want it to be. You're not locked in when you paint. You can change it, you make it look any way you want it to. When you're not happy, then don't stop, keep going. Change it. Don't think just because you put a mountain in a certain way doesn't mean you can't change it. Or rocks or anything. There. Now I know I'm going very quickly through some of these color mixes and things. I'm doing that just because I want to save time. I don't want to be here too long. But I do have instructional DVDs where I show you color mixing and give you more depth and in-depth instruction. And that might be something you might want to check out. It really will help you enhance your art. You won't struggle with your colors so much, or whatever you seem to be struggling with. Whatever you have trouble with, it'll really help. All right. In fact, I guess it was last week, we filmed Technique Series Mountains 2, Advanced Mountains. And it went really well. We're just building off of what you've learned from Mountains 1. So I think that one will be very popular. I hope you enjoy it. I know mountains are one of the things people have a lot of trouble with. Okay, I'm just piddling around with these rocks. I guess I should stop doing that. We'll continue on with something else. Those rocks are fun though. Okay, we have tree trunks to do. I think we're going to do them last. Let's go ahead and work on this tree. So to do that, let me just continue with a filbert brush because it's working pretty well. Oh, maybe a little red into this color, a little white, not too much white. Okay, I've only loaded one side. Take this right up here and run it down the tree, like that. I'm gonna come around the back side here, and I wanna just put in a little bit of tree texture. Now at the very end of the paintings, what I almost always do, I almost always come in with a little bit of white on the end of the liner and I kind of detail everything out. So I'll put a crisp edge of light on this tree, which is just going to be super pretty. Okay, little bit of a shadow on this side. And then on this one as well. And then a bit of a highlight on that one as well. This one probably won't get so much of a secondary highlight, but it certainly could get a first highlight here. The second highlight, like I said, it's going to be done with the liner. And over here. Or you can do it even with a 3/4 brush. That'd probably work pretty well. In fact, we could have done this whole thing so far with a 3/4 brush. Got a different effect, a more smooth effect. All right, let's do some leaves. We're getting some good mileage out of this filbert brush today, aren't we? Oops, that's not quite dark enough. So I'm just going to change to my dark one. Remember, I have a light and dark one. I actually have 4 going today, just because I knew I wanted to use a lot of the filbert brush and I didn't want to have to stop and clean one. There. Really just kind of block some of this in very quickly. Have a lot of fun. Scoot back on the brush, be loose. Go right over those clouds. Weren't those clouds fun? It's a pretty simple way to do clouds. Just a little scratching with the filbert brush, a little bit of white paint. There. Okay. I'm going to step back and take a look. Okay, I think it's about time we work on those rocks. So I'm going to go ahead and change now to the 3/4 inch brush. You see this? Nice 3/4, clean, ready to go. Take some white paint, and we are going to build up, like I said, that highlight on the tree more. I noticed it was a little soft. Okay, white paint. Yellow ochre, touch of red, mostly yellow ochre. Get a beautiful, beautiful color. Okay, so it looks like we're back. If you're having trouble, try refreshing the page, or let us know in the comment section, because we'll try to help you. So thank you for bearing with us. It seems like we had a camera go down, so we had to reset, and we're back and going. It's one of the hazards of doing all this live, but I tell you, I have a lot of fun. It's exciting. I've been thinking about it all day. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm just working on this now. I actually got a chance to take a several second look at it just there. And I think we're coming along pretty well with these highlights. I'm getting to where I'm satisfied as far as the light areas are concerned here on the rocks. I don't want to go crazy because then I start to lose all this beautiful, beautiful contrast that I have. There.
Remember your rock question.
All right. And I do remember the question I got not too long ago about help shaping rocks. So I've got my darks, I've got my midtones, I've got my highlights, and then what I can do to really make these rocks come alive, something that's very important is you leave these crisp edges and then you just feather them. So I've ran out of paint, see I've kind of got some on the end of the brush that's dark, and then I scoot some of that right along. And it creates a 4th color in those rocks. So if you can get 4 colors into your rocks, you're going to have a lot more detail. And it's going to kind of come alive. You're going to enjoy it. Well, actually, I tell you what. Well, we got a bright, shiny color. Let's just, I don't know, I feel like we want a little bit more light right out on this trunk. Kind of blend it back a little red, because red is beautiful in tree trunks. If you just throw it in kind of random, a little brown over that, and just makes it come alive. So I hope you're having a lot of fun. This is really, really a joy to do. All right, let me wipe out my brush, and I'm just going to work on some of these bits of color back here. So I can blend my rocks back, and that kind of creates that nice effect of a round rock. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna quickly just smudge some color in here. That's what I did. On my original, I just smudged a little color randomly to create beautiful rock areas. I'm gonna come back with a little black. And sort of sneak in some dark pockets. And these are all things we can do at the very, very end. In fact, if you've taken a class with me, you know that I always make you save it for the end. We don't do any kind of correction to speak of until the very end of the painting because I know that things change. And something that bothered you in the past won't bother you when you're finished because the whole painting is just different. Overall, the feel of the painting is different at the end. There. Now, another thing that I should mention here, we often get a lot of questions about original paintings. Well, I know I only have a few on the website, but all of my YouTube video ones are for sale or have been. So if there's something that I painted that you don't see on the website, let us know and we can check and see if we still have it or if it's available. Because I really want to give you the opportunity to enjoy these paintings in person if you want to. All right. Sneak in a couple of those blues in there. I think that's looking pretty. Wait till we get the moss on that grass on those rocks.
Here's a question.
Oh, we have a question. Okay.
Are you considering doing a rock technique DVD?
Oh, that's a good idea. The question is, am I considering doing a rock technique DVD? Well, like I said, I just finished Mountains #2 Advanced Series. So yeah, I think rocks would go pretty well with that. I think that would be another good DVD to film. And I've got some good techniques that might help you do rocks. Because a lot of it's just this brushwork creating these sharp chiseled edges and then we could do some ocean rocks or something fun too. So yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Thank you for that thought. All right. We've had a lot of fun with rocks today. Let's work on some flowers. That's, after all, kind of the point of this painting. It's just, you look at it and you see the flowers, the beautiful wildflowers. So again, I'm gonna clean off a spot to work. There it goes. Just scoop off the paint like this. That way I don't have muddy flowers. I'm gonna get a new paper towel because I want to wipe my filbert brush out again, or fan brush. Probably not the filbert so much, but clean fan brush, brand new, just took it out of the package. I'm gonna take some blue, some red, mix those all together here. And then I'm gonna add some white. Okay. A little more colors here. So I don't want them overly blue, but I don't want them too purple either. It just kind of depends. Kind of get a good balance here. Okay, now to that I'll just add some white. Let me throw this up on the canvas and see what we think. Not bad. A little more white, but there we go.
Here's a question.
All right, we got another question.
How do you know when to stop working an area? It's so easy to overdo it.
Okay, question is, how do we know when to stop working in a certain area because it's easy to overdo? Well, first of all, it's absolutely easy to overdo. So don't feel bad if you overdo it. But the easiest way to know when it's time to stop is, well, obviously, number one, are you happy with it? The second you're happy with it, you're done. Put the brush on the table because you're finished with that area. You can't make it better. Once you're happy with it, just leave it alone. But if you're not happy with it, you're still trying to work on it. If it's becoming muddy, it's time to stop. If you're starting to feel what I call feel out of control, and the only way you'll know if you're out of control or not is simply by painting a lot. So it comes with practice. But if you're feeling like you're not as in control over the textures and where the paint's going and the color of the paint, if it's becoming muddy, stop. Because there's nothing worse than going on and then really running into trouble. And it's not an issue for you to have to scrape an area and do it again. So if I didn't like that meadow, I wouldn't paint over it again. I would take my knife and I'd just remove as much paint as I could, take a paper towel and I'd smudge it again, and I'd paint my, yikes, I'd paint my grass field right back in because I can't go over it. It's too slippery. So that really will help. It's mostly just the texture of the paint is what you need to look for. That's a really good question because it is a problem. Okay. There we go. I'm throwing a little bit of color right there because I think these are going to be bigger flowers, but don't want to paint them in now.
Here's a question.
All right.
Kevin, in which cases do you prefer to use knife rather than a brush?
Okay. The question is, which cases do I prefer to use the knife over the brush? Well, a foreground rock, I would probably want to use the knife. The basic idea with the knife is you're going to put down texture. You're going to put down a lot of texture. So if you don't want texture, don't use the knife. Now, there are certain times, I'm just pushing that rock back a little bit there. There's certain times where you can use the knife with very little paint and get some texture, but the texture's not sticking off the canvas, so that's pretty nice. But for the most part, when you use the knife, you're going to get texture. So if you don't want texture, don't use the knife. For a soft background mountain, I'll just use a brush. Or if I'm going to do a closer up mountain, I will use the knife and put a little texture on, but not a lot. And again, for the foreground rocks, it's perfect. For rocks and pebbles in the front of the path, that would be good. It just depends on what you're doing. All right, I'm going to stamp into a little bit of color just on one side of the brush here. Get a little bit more of our blue, red. It's kind of pretty much all purple right now, so that's what I want, a little more blue. Get this white right out on the edge there. I think this is going to be beautiful. Watch this. Oh yeah, look at that. Stamp in some flowers, little wildflowers. It must have rained here recently. Look at the wildflowers. They're blooming everywhere. It's just beautiful. And I can do some slightly larger textures back there just to kind of give myself some depth. I think we might want to even use the filbert brush. You can do some pink ones, some ones with more pink, ones with more blue. You have a lot of options here when you're doing things like this. Okay. I'm going to stick just a little bit of color down here and be a little bit more loose with it, a little more of an impressionistic look right here at the bottom, just because I want the flowers to kind of fade into a mass of deep color right here. Isn't that pretty? Kind of shows some extra flowers where there really isn't any. Kind of paint in, do a little adjustment here. There we go. Let me step back. All right. More white. I just want to stamp in a couple more flowers.
Here's a question.
Ah, we got another question. Okay.
Can you please show how you're holding your brush for those flowers?
Oh, okay, sure. Can I show how I'm holding my brush for the flowers? Well, I've got it. I've done a couple of things here. I've got the brush and I'm tilting it forward. So I load one corner, tilt it forward, and I just stamp in like this. See that?
A little so we can see. There you go.
So I stamp it in like that, leaving a little texture. There. I guess my hand was blocking it. Makes it hard to see sometimes, so. Sometimes, yeah, I gotta balance being able to paint and being able to see. I know sometimes I block the camera, but it's kind of tough sometimes to paint on a weird angle, so I'm glad you mentioned it. So I want to make this as valuable as I can for you. I want you to learn. I want you to have a lot of fun. Isn't this fun?
Here's a question. On your YouTube series, we have never seen you sign your paintings. Is this done after the production, or do you leave them unsigned?
Okay, this is a great question. On my videos, I don't normally sign my paintings, and that's true for a couple of reasons. Number one is to sign over this area down here, sometimes it's not overly easy because sometimes there's a lot of texture like rocks. Sometimes they're not, sometimes I just don't do it. There's no reason why you can't sign it while it's wet, but usually I wait till it's dry. Just a little safer that way. And you get a better controlled signature, but you could certainly paint it well while it's wet. Sign it while it's wet. Just depends on what you want to do. Let me step back. Oh, it's not a bad little field of flowers there. I think we've
Question.
okay, we got another question.
Is it very dry paint? Or are you putting it on thick?
Ah, okay. The question is this dry paint and am I putting it on really thick? Yeah, I'm putting it on really thick. It's not overly dry. In fact, like I said earlier, I've got a paint set and I've got tubes available on the website. So if you're at all wondering if your paint's correct, just go ahead and purchase a set and give it a try, because that's what I'm using, the same exact paint that you're going to receive when you buy the set. It's not overly thick. It's certainly thick, but it's not extremely thick. You can still move it around, but it's got a nice pigment to it, so it really covers well. This is applied very heavy over here because I know I'm not going over this again. Not at all. What do you think? Maybe a couple over here? Just a couple of white ones, not too much. Okay, I want to do some grass. I think we painted enough of the flowers. Let's do some grass. Yellow, green, and purple, which was already in the brush, is fine. Not going to hurt it one little bit. Let's go right here. Paint some grass, moss. Again, I'm having a little bit of a glare right here, so I may end up adjusting this when I step back to take a look. I think this is going in okay. Got a little bit out here. Fade it back, some moss out here. Moss or grass, I don't know which one it is. Whatever the viewer decides. Some dark, because I know that to show light we need dark.
Here's a quick question.
All right, we got another question here.
Do you ever soften up the texture with a brush on mountains after using the knife?
Ah, okay, so we've got another mountain question. The question is, do I soften up the texture of the mountains with a brush after it's painted with a knife? Well, I probably have in the past. I don't remember a specific occasion. It certainly seems like a good idea if you want to flatten it slightly. However, you have to make sure that the paint is applied sparingly with the knife and under the mountain, because you'll very, very, very easily make a big muddy mess if you start smearing the mountain with the brush. Because I do know that sometimes when you paint mist in the mountain, it gets a little muddy. So you do want to be careful about that. All right, there we go. Paint a little bit there, and I'm just working my colors back and forth till I get it kind of the way I want it. And then I kind of just leave it alone. Okay, we need some right here. There we go. This painting's really starting to be wrapped up pretty quick. We're about to grab the liner brush and really bring it to the next level. This is where you take your painting, and it doesn't have to be the liner brush. It could be the corner of the 3/4 brush if you'd rather use that. But in my mind, this is where you bring the painting just to the next level. Make it look really, really nice when you go and you do all the liner brush work. Okay, let me step back and see if I like the rocks. I'm going to change to the filbert. I do like them, I just don't think there's quite enough highlight for my taste. It's like I said, I had trouble seeing, so. There's a little extra light for you. Okay, there we go. So when you're painting at home, step back. Always, always stepping back and looking. That's how you know when you're on the right track. You'll be able to easily see what's going on. There, I didn't have that in original, but I kind of like that hanging over the edge like that. Okay, let's put a little color up here. That's pretty. Filbert brush and a very quick green. I don't even know what's in it because I just grabbed it off the palette. Mostly whatever was in the brush. Oh, let's throw a little ochre in there just to change it. We can do that. Okay, that's pretty nice. Let me just get a darker color out here, darker green, and add in a secondary color, just so it's not all the same. Cool, that looks pretty good. A little dark in there, really pop it out. A little dark in the tree here. All right, now before we go too far, here's some white, and I may need to squirt out some more white pretty soon. Okay, that's all right, I got my paint sitting right over here. All right, so I got a little bit of white, yellow, and a very chiseled filbert brush. I'm gonna run just a couple of little tiny lines. Let's use the 3/4 brush. It's gonna give us even better. Thin line, oh yeah, that's thinner. The filbert was great for the big ones. Now we got to change to 3/4 for the smaller ones. And in here, I know I want some. I hope you can see that my hand's not in the way too much for you. Let's see if I can go like this. You just get the idea. All right, now should you get too many or just simply in the wrong spot or just too much of one trunk, just soften back a little so they fit. But I like that. It just really brings it all together, makes it nice. I'm going to squirt out some more white while we're going. So again, like I said, big tubes are on the website. Just a little, well, that's a lot of paint. We won't use up all that paint, but that way it's there. It's better to use too little paint than too much. In fact, I recommend not squirting out too much because if you squirt out a lot, you'll probably use a lot, and then your painting will be muddy. Save yourself some money. Don't use up as much paint, and a lot of aggravation. Just use less and keep it more under control. I think you'll have better success. Okay. Some little tiny bits of color just to sort of seed them back. Not bad. I like it. That's a clean brush just to blend. Now, let me go ahead and darken this mix with a lot of brown and red and yellow. A little touch of white, but not much. We're really kind of coming to a close here. This is how I finish up a painting. So you remember those questions for how do I finish a painting? Well, this is it. This is how you decide when you're finished. You're just looking around, deciding where you need the final details, the beautiful areas. Wow, look at that one's crossing over. And you just throw them in. Let me step back. Okay. And again, with the darker brush, smudge these together. So you don't want them standing out too much. And those are very dark, and I want them dark because I don't want it to distract too much from the overall. I don't like that one. It was matching the same. I'm going to paint that one over again. It was kind of distracting. It was like lining up. I saw some symmetrical shapes, and that's never allowed in painting. At least not when you're trying to do a natural landscape. If you want to do something else, then I'm guessing symmetry is okay. But for a natural landscape, it's better if you don't. Okay. And watch this. A couple little guys right out here. I think we're about ready for some filbert brush work. Or, I'm sorry, liner brush work. We've been using a filbert brush so much, of course I think we're doing filbert brush work next. No, we're going to do liner brush work. Okay. So I've got some thin oil in a bucket right over here. And I'm going to just put my brush into it and go into a little bit of, well, green, black, brown, just something dark. And quickly throw in a branch or two. Now this is not really the important part of the painting. What's actually even more important than this is, let me wash out this brush really good. Wipe it on a towel so it's dry. I'm going to scoop up a little bit of our yellow and our white. So we have a beautiful bright color. See this? Now you've got to be wondering, what am I doing with that much paint on my brush? My liner brush? Watch this. And I'm rolling it as I go down to feed clean paint to the tip. If you don't roll it, it's going to become muddy. Watch that. Isn't that cool? It looks too hard now, but we can blend it back. I just want to get all the color on here. That little branch right there needs some. Isn't that neat? I like it. I think that's fun. I can throw a little out on here. Why not? Make it a thicker branch. Okay. Wow, we could even use this to...
Kevin,
Yeah.
can you explain what you meant by thin oil?
Oh, sure. We got another question here. Can I explain what I mean by thin oil? Well, a lot of artists use paint thinner, but there's some hazards with that. So another great alternative is linseed oil, or there's a couple other forms of oil as well you can use for art. The linseed oil will thin your paint and make it flow, make it runny and wet. And it really does work pretty well. I'm just going to throw in some more flowers like this. Why not? I'm just whacking them with the liner brush. I think that's working pretty well too. See that? Not bad. And I'm kind of at this point just having fun. I'm taking my time here. I'm throwing in these details, and I hope you're having a lot of fun. I didn't want to go too long, but I don't want to rush it. You guys came to enjoy this time of painting, so I don't want to just rush through it. So I hope you're having a lot of fun with me. What do you think? Maybe right here, we put a little sliver of, I don't know, that yellow. Why not? We can. I have my finger. I'm just going to kind of blend it back a little. Okay. We can put a slight dark edge on this, just to break it up a little. I don't know if that shows. Okay, we got another question.
Will the linseed oil work well to clean brushes in the middle of a painting?
Ah, will the linseed oil work well to clean brushes in the middle of the painting? I don't have a good answer for that because I really don't know. I've never tried it, and I've never really heard of it, so maybe it would make the brushes too wet. I mean, maybe it'd be too hard to clean it out. I don't know that. So that'd be something you need to look into, but experiment. Why not? You can maybe find out something that we don't know. It'd be very interesting to try. But I really don't have the answer to that today, unfortunately. However, if you want to clean brushes, you can use baby oil. Maybe it's not perfect for during the painting because it also, probably like linseed oil, would make the brushes too wet. I use baby oil at the end to wash my brushes and dry them very well. So, during the painting, I don't wash brushes. Really, I don't at all. If I do, I'll just touch them into baby oil. Not too much, tiny bit. But it's better just to use multiple brushes and not wash. Or you could use your paint thinner, but again, it comes with its own little hazards. See this? I'm dropping on some beautiful light to these rocks, and I'm sort of touching with the brush. Isn't it amazing that you can do details with the liner brush like this? I mean, the paint's not thinned. This is thick old oil paint on here. This is regular, straight out of the tube, nothing done to it. And I'm making these textures with it. You can do it. It's fine. Okay, I got a little heavy there. You can always erase. You got your clean brush or something on the table. Just use it and you can erase anything you want to change or add or adjust. There. Let me step back. All right, I see like a couple more highlights in here to create little pebbles and stones. There. Now, one thing that I really enjoyed, I hope you were here in the very beginning because you'll notice that Colin was playing guitar. So I just want to say thank you for that. That was fun. If you don't know who Colin is, that's my little brother. He does the music on all the YouTube videos, and we're really thankful. It's a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed that part too. All right, there we go. I'm just breaking up this little white line on that trunk because it was a hair too solid.
Here's a question.
Ah, we got a good question. Okay.
Do you varnish the paintings once they dry?
The question is, do you varnish paintings once they dry? Well, do I? I do, actually. I don't always do it, but I certainly do it sometime. I love them varnished. I think they're beautiful when they're varnished. I would recommend varnishing them. You do need to let them fully dry, and that takes a long time. But once they're fully dry, you can go ahead and varnish them. I like a glossy varnish myself. Maybe you're not into glossy varnishes, but I just think they really bring out the life and detail in the color, the depth in the color. So yes, I like to varnish them, although I don't usually, just because I don't have a lot of time to do that, as well as they have to dry for a while. There. Okay, I'm gonna go back to some thin down color. So I've got my thin oil, and I've got my liner brush with a little bit of yellow, green, and I'm gonna try to put in some blades of, oops, that's not near thin enough. Put in some blades of grass here. That's a little better. Not too many of these bright ones, only a few. Okay, that's enough there. Over here, bright ones. So depending on the consistency of the paint, you'll get larger or smaller lines, actually. If your paint's really, really thin, it'll all come out and you'll get pretty thick lines. If you're kind of thinner and you use the correct pressure, you'll actually get really skinny lines, but it won't be so vibrant or bright. So it's kind of a balancing thing. You got to figure out on your own. Practice on a board or something. Practice over wet paint, though. Don't practice on a dry canvas, because you'll get a totally different effect, and you'll go to paint on a real thing, and you'll be confused. So don't do that. Paint on something that's wet, even if you just throw down a simple background. Okay. So I've got my deep, deep, deep colors here. I'm going to throw some of these deep grass blades over the path area. Yeah, we're having some fun today, aren't we? This is good. This is fun. I'm enjoying it. Huge blades of grass over here. We're getting to where we're pretty much coming to a close. I'm going to step back and take a look at it in just a few seconds and figure out what we got to do to it to make it really more complete. But I'm actually looking over at my other one. Pretty much put in everything I put in over there. Ooh, there's some beautiful green ones. Okay, I see that maybe we want to do some more green ones back here. I think I want to do that with a fan, maybe, or a filbert actually. Okay, go ahead.
Do you paint the sides of your canvas, or do you leave them white?
Okay. The question is, do I paint the sides of my canvas, or are they left white? I always, almost always, 99% of the time, leave them white. Number one, these are edge stapled canvases. And that's fine because I intend for these paintings to be framed because they look better in a frame. Now, I've done some commissioned work in the past, quite a while ago, where the customer wanted painting around the side, so I would do that. But otherwise, I don't. Otherwise, I like to leave them with the white sides and just frame them. Because like I said, they're just more impressive in a frame. And I want to do whatever I can to kind of give my art a detailed, finished, crisp look. And so that's why. Okay, I probably think that's going to look a little better. Oh yeah, look at how that meadow, see how that just kind of lit the whole painting up? All we did was a little bit of work, and it changed the whole mood of that painting in that area. See that? The lights coming in and striking this area, and wow, it's more impressive now. Let me see. All right. I think we're getting close to finished. Let me just take one overall look for a couple seconds, and I'll jump right back in and point out anything I see. All right. I think it looks pretty good. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm happy. What do you think? Did you have a lot of fun? Well, thank you so much for tuning in and watching me do this live painting. I really enjoyed doing it with you, and I hope you had fun asking me a lot of questions. I know I enjoyed helping you. Hope you learned a lot, and I hope you tune in next time. We'll do this again sometime. So thanks for watching.